The Rizals is considered one of the biggest families during their time. Domingo Lamco, the family's paternal ascendant, was a full-blooded Chinese who came to the Philippines from Amoy, China in the closing years of the 17th century and married a Chinese half-breed by the name of Ines de la Rosa. And also, researchers revealed that the Mercado Rizal family had also traces of Japanese, Spanish, Malay, and even Negrito blood aside from Chinese. Jose Rizal came from a 13-member family consisting of his parents, Francisco Mercado II, and Teodora Alonso Rialonda, and 9 sisters and 1 brother. And you know what? Jose Rizal and his siblings studied at exclusive schools in the country, and the family was among the most respected one of the most respected families of Manila. Their house employed a number of household helpers, not counting those who helped them in the field. They certainly had influence and held some amount of political power.
So how was Jose Rizal our national hero in his childhood days? Jose Rizal grew up like the other normal kids, but what made him different was he was already known to be an achiever at a young age. He was not physically a strong child, but the direction of his first studies was by an unusually gifted mother who succeeded almost without the aid of books in laying a foundation upon which the man placed an amount of well-mastered knowledge, and this was done in so short a time that its briefness constitutes another wonder. Truly, of all the persons who had the greatest influence on Rizal's development as a person was his mother Teodora Alonso. It was she who opened his eyes and heart to the world around him, with all its soul and poetry, as well as its bigotry and injustice. His mother was his first teacher, and from her he learned to read and consequently to value reading as a means for learning and spending one's time meaningfully. At 3, he learned his letters, having insisted upon being taught to read and being allowed to share the lessons of an elder sister. Immediately thereafter, he was discovered with her storybook, spelling out his words by the aid of syllabary. At the age of 5, he showed artistic abilities such as sketching, clay molding, and later on wax imaging. Thus, he came to think for himself, ideas were suggested to him indirectly, so he's never a servile copyist, and he acquired the habit of speedy accomplishment. His first reading lesson was the story of the moth from his mother, also known as the foolish butterfly. He also wrote his first poem, Mi Primera Inspiración, in the Ateneo de Municipal and gave it as a present to his mother's birthday.
At the age of 8, he wrote a Tagalog poem, Sa Aking Mga Kababata, the theme of which revolves on the love of one's language, as there was no formal schooling for primary education. His mentors was able to instill in him physical education, life values, and the morals of a true. His early education was the same as the other children from an Ilustrado family, which was rigid and strict. But Rizal grew up to be religious, prayerful, and God-fearing. His love for the arts and literature also started sparks in his childhood.
From this colorful life, he also experienced sorrows at a young age. It was at his age of 4 when his favorite little sister died. It was the first of many griefs, but he quickly realized that life is a constant struggle, and he learned to meet disappointments and sorrows with the tears in the heart and a smile on the lips, as he once advised a nephew to do. In the later years, he studied Latin and Spanish to Maestro Justiniano Aquino Cruz in Binyan, Laguna. He passed the entrance exam in San Juan de Letran, but he matriculated in Ateneo de Municipal. He graduated with highest honors, Bride of the Jesuit, on March 23, 1877. And there were still so many interesting stories from Rizal's childhood that I cannot share in this clip. But above all, we can really say that his heroic life started a wonderful childhood from his family full of values.
Family is important in our everyday lives. Family helps us improve personality and shape our future. Family teaches us how to love, be truthful, and be loyal. Family also guide us whenever trouble comes. Family give advices to us. Family is a place where we are accepted of who we are. Family understands us no matter what.
To answer that question, we must first answer another, more fundamental one. What is the goal of education? Practically, I see it as a means to find a job or career. Rizal, however, has a different answer. Rizal viewed education as a medicine or a means of curing the issues of colonial Philippines. He believed of an education devoid of political and religious influence. He claimed that reform is impossible to achieve unless Filipinos had access to liberal education. Rizal wrote to his nephew Alfredo Hidalgo in one of his letters that life is a very serious thing and only those with intelligence and heart can go through it worthily. He came to a conclusion that in a battlefield, man has no better weapon than his intelligence. Was Rizal being reasonable with his statements? Yes. In his 1890 essay, The Indolence of the Filipinos, Rizal stated that the education of the Filipinos from birth to death during the Spanish regime was brutalizing, depressing, and anti-human. Filipinos were prevented from thinking. Students were subjected to regular preaching that lowered their human dignity and killed their self-respect. They've been taught to act mechanically without even knowing the purpose. This situation caused the Filipinos to embrace the notion that they are of a lower race, and this assertion has been repeated to the children, and it was engraved in their minds, affecting their future actions. If we consider this scenario, we can actually understand Rizal's need for different education, a new way of teaching the Filipino youth. Rizal thought that no matter how basic the education is, if it was the suitable education for the people, it would be enough to awaken their aspirations of greatness and development, and eventually, change would finally come. In his poem, Education Gives Luster to the Motherland, Rizal emphasized on the great vision of education as a way of instilling enchanting values and uplifting our country to a high level of immortality and dazzling glory. Now, after all of that, we can say that to be educated, a person must have the knowledge required to meet his or her own needs as a human being, and that includes our need to be free in our own country.
There are a lot of things that differs from the youth in Rizal's time and the youth today. First one is equality. Only the ilustrados or the elite Filipino children of wealthy families can afford to go on school during the 18th century. Additionally, the mestizo or mestiza half-breed Filipino-Spanish offsprings are either treated badly by pure Spaniards or glorified by the Filipinos for their fair complexion. Next is the poor and the wealthy. The disparity between the educated, wealthy Filipino and the illiterate, poor Filipino was so great then. Now, public school offers free education as implementing in the Philippine Constitution. This creates an opportunity for the poor to elevate their economic status and provide growth or improvement in their living conditions. Next is gender. Boys are encouraged to finish formal education to become doctors and etc., while girls are encouraged to learn informal education, house activities, or home economics to become housewives. Now, there is an equal opportunity for both men and women to do jobs on any fields without discrimination, as written in the Gender and Development. During the Spanish occupation as well, since there is a strong religious Catholic teachings, being a homosexual was condemned, while now non-Catholic school institutions are becoming more open to this concept and understanding to the equal rights of those in the LGBT community. Next is the Maria Clara image. During Rizal's time, it is important to preserve the chastity of women, especially those out of marriage, that unwed couples are ostracized by community. Girls are also expected to be behaved and well-dressed without indecency. Now, girls are more open to the thought of dressing up clothing of the modern time which does not fit the mold of the Maria Clara image ages ago. This is heavily influenced by the modern media and the liberated ways of the U.S. had imparted with the Filipinos during their colonization. Filipino students can now wear what they want as long as it follows the dress code and not inhibited to the traditional ways before. Next is the grade levels. During Rizal's time, some schools allow finishing grades 1 to 6 will allow you to finish or graduate in basic education, while now kinder and grades 1 to 12 encouraged in the curriculum. Tutoring for scholarly development is still the same as it is before. Next is teachers. During the Spanish colonization, Catholic churches managed schools in the Luzon, Visayas regions, thus the priests and Spanish teachers were normal during their time. In the Mindanao, the culture was heavily preserved by the Moro since invasions was not successful there. Thus, informal education of the traditions were made. Filipinos who have achieved higher education also provide education for their communities. Now, majority of the teachers are Filipino graduates with different backgrounds and religions. Next is the liberty and democracy. Any opposition with the Spanish government or anything inciting to it, including students, are considered treason to the Spanish government. They are either sent to jail or publicly executed to instill fear among Filipinos to avoid revolution. But now, in a democratic government, students can freely demonstrate against the government if they do not agree with something, without fear of being punished, as long as it follows any current laws or rules amended in the current times. Allowed only in a certain area in time, not obeying the limitations will dump a criminal case. Separation of church and law. Friars are higher in the command than the Gobernador General, who controls the military and maintains the law enforcement. For this very reason, Catholic Church was a very prominent powerhouse, controlling law, religion, and education during Rizal's time. But now, in the current 1987 Constitution of the Republic of the Philippines, it is mandated that there should be separation between the church and the law, unlike what it was before the Spanish colonization.
Truly, Rizal's life is an inspiration to all. Rizal's childhood also reminds us that despite of the poor education system we experience here in the Philippines, it is a must to be an extra miler and explore for more.